Welcome, everybody, to today's Catalyit Live Hot Topic, the ugly truth about tech implementation. We're excited to have you guys here. I am Scott Wingo, Catlet's webinar producer, and I'll be your host for today's session. Today, we're joined by two leaders from SALT, Casey Hedge, General Manager at SALT, and who works closely with agencies to improve operational execution and drive real results from technology investments, and Jennie Riley, Sales Director at SALT, who partners with agency leaders to help them successfully implement new systems and navigate the challenges of adoption. Casey and Jennie, appreciate you guys. We are glad to have you both here today. With this conversation that hits close to home for a lot of agencies, every agency buys technology. We know that, and with the same expectation that it's going to make things easier and work. But the reality is most technology rollouts don't fail because the tool is bad. They fail because of adoption never truly happens. Teams resist, processes break, leaders push harder, and frustration grows. So today's session should be about hopefully pulling back a little bit of the curtain on what that actually determines with success when implementing new systems. And of course, before we get started, just a few quick notes. As always, please enter your questions in the Q&A section at any time. We'll pause at key moments, and then we could save time at the end if there is any additional Q&A. And feel free to also use the chat for any comments or technical issues or questions, whichever one you want to do. I'll be monitoring both throughout the session. And today's session is being recorded, and the replay will be available within 24 hours inside of our Catalyit on-demand video vault at catalyit.com. So you'll be able to rewatch it or share it with your team. So with that, Casey, Jennie, I'm going to go ahead and thank you again for both being here, and I'm going to throw it over to you, Casey, and I'm going to take off my screen share.
We are also excited to be here. I do want to introduce ourselves and give you a little bit of background, not to flex our illustrious career or resume, but rather to give you an understanding of why we think we're qualified to even talk about this subject, and hope that you lean in and listen. So I was an independent agent owner for 12 years. So I started as an account manager in personal lines. I managed personal lines, then I eventually became the president of the agency. So I've been in your shoes. I have failed miserably at tech implementation. I have failed average at tech implementation, and then I have succeeded at tech implementation. So I've got the battle scars to show it, but I feel like because of that background, I do have some wisdom to drop today. And then we're pretty passionate about this subject too, because SALT was actually born out of this agency. We were suffering from inefficiencies in personal lines. Average revenue per year is $388 per account. So we were looking for ways to tighten up that process and not spend so much time taking in data. So we built technology for our agency. So not only do I have the independent agent experience, but also building technology for solving a problem, and then we switched and became a SaaS product because we thought every independent agent needs this. So that's my background. And then I want Jennie to introduce herself as well. She's our sales director here at SALT, but she has a long career in InsurTech. So she sees it from that angle as well. So Jennie, I'll let you do the honors.
Yeah, thank you so much, Casey and Scott. Thanks for having us. And Lauren, thanks for having us. We're excited to be back and talk a little bit about what pains a lot of agencies in buying new technology is. We're all excited. We buy the product. We're excited to get started. And then this cliff happens where the team doesn't want to get on board, or the processes don't change, and then it just sits there and becomes a bill, right? It just becomes a recurring monthly spend. And so we're excited to talk about that. Again, my name's Jen Riley, sales director. I'm located in Columbus, Ohio. I've worked in InsurTech for longer than I'd like to admit, but one of the common problems we see in implementation is adoption. How do we get our team on board? I bought this, whether it's expensive or inexpensive product, we need to get it in our team's hands and using it. Does that mean one person user gets really get going and then the other team gets on board? Do we get everybody on board at once? But today we're going to talk a little bit about that and some of the key findings that we've seen, but how to reduce that friction in the onboarding process. So we'll get to talk a little bit about that today, which we're excited for.
I think bridging those two backgrounds and experience coming to SALT, we also talk with thousands of agents a year about this said problem. And I think Jennie would agree with me. Our biggest competitor is not one of our competitors. It's the agent saying, I couldn't get my team to use it. And so that breaks our heart. So that's another reason I think what we bring to the table today here is just firsthand experience. And we really want to help you solve this problem, this challenge in your agency if you have this challenge, which I assume you do because you're here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We'll go ahead and get started. I went ahead and started sharing my screen because we do have some slides that we want to go through. There's some quick bullet points. I know a lot of us are visual learners, but yes, Scott mentioned, please use the chat, please use the Q&A as they come in. Casey and I will be bouncing in between those. And then Scott, it sounds like we'll have a few minutes afterward to answer any questions and such as well. So yeah, really excited to get started here. So you're here on this webinar because you're curious about this problem that maybe is sneaking into the agency or has snuck into the agency before, or you're maybe just scared to buy new technology because you don't know how you're going to get it implemented. And so what we really find is when challenges pop up like staff adoption, the staff doesn't want to change their workflows. They've always done it this way. Why change now? There has to be accountability to keep that adoption on track. So in a lot of cases, you all have probably sat in product demos or think about when you're exploring new products and you're doing the searching. When you buy a product, even if it's not just software, let's say it's something for the agency. Let's say you buy a new printer in the agency, but everyone else is still handwriting things down. You've wasted money now on that product. How many licenses are you buying? How many of them are actually using it? So you're not only throwing dollars down the drain, but you're wasting a lot of time with your team trying to move this ball forward. And then the staff feels that a little bit, right? They feel this pull of, I feel like I should be doing this, but I'm not really sure how to ask for help. I don't want to raise my hand because I'm moving as fast as I can here with this. So you think about those three things: time, money, and then a discouraged staff. That could be a real problem. And again, that's where that cliff happens. And then leadership gets the fingers pointed at them, right? Hey,
Yeah.
you bought this product. You
Jennie,
it's going to help us.
This discouraged staff concern here, real story. Like when we as agents come back from these awesome conferences and seminars that we attend to get smarter and bring all this back to the agency, I can just picture my staff rolling their eyes with all my big ideas that I would come back from. So it's just, it is real. It's a real burnout problem when you introduce things and then don't adopt it and come again with the next one. So that is a real concern.
Yeah. And you think about right now, just the state of insurance industry in general, a lot of agents I talk to almost every day are saying, we have a retention problem in the agency. We can't keep agents. We are always hiring new agents. We're always hiring new account managers or service team members. But think about if you had a process or processes in place, software in place, and accountability in place that made everyone run faster, smoother, and much happier. I've never heard an agent say, I want to get into the insurance industry to do data intake or to enter information into my rater. That's not why people get in the industry. People get in the industry to build relationships, work with people, and help in that time of need. And we want to give that time back. And so setting up those realistic expectations in the beginning, I think, is going to be really important to that. And so again, when you think about opportunity cost, right? It's not just money. It's not just time. It is staff and your competitive disadvantage, which is a big one. I talk to agents about this all the time where, if you say, what's the agent that you compete with the most in your town? They're all going to know. But do you know what that agency is doing differently than yours from a data intake perspective, a rating perspective, an agency management perspective? What's making them succeed that you're missing? So what if someone came to the agency and said, I bought a new home, I'm looking for new coverage. Do you think that you're the only agent they're going to go to, or you're the only price they're checking? Probably not. So what does that experience look like when you're using these tools to help your customers and help your agents? So Casey, I know that you touched on a little bit about opportunity cost inside of the agency, but what did you see when you were thinking about your agency when the staff was just running around without the right processes in place. What did that feel like at the agency level?
And just very discouraging, and it's not a very hopeful environment when there's not a process and structure in place. Another real story, I was switching management systems, and we all know that comes with some pain. Even in the same company, switching management systems from this one to this one, same company, is painful. So we lost a couple of account managers. They called it an early retirement, but what it was is they weren't willing to switch. And so we'll get into the people part of this solution, but I think that was probably one of my biggest heartaches, was losing good people because the technology curve up was so painful. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think it does illustrate real life.
Yeah. And the question is, does it have to be painful? I think when a lot of agents come to SALT and start the demoing process, it's a lot of the questions we get: how much help do we get with onboarding? What happens after we buy the product? And what does that look like? And I always challenge agents, when you're looking at technology, ask those questions. Okay, great. You're showing us how great the product is and what it can do for our agency, but how do we get it adopted? What does our team need to do to make sure they're successful? What KPIs do we need to put in place to make sure that the software is working well? Or what should we be seeing in the first 30, 60, 90 days after this has been implemented? And we have the 3 Ps, which we talk about a little bit internally here at SALT, which is people, process, and persistence. So from the people side of it, how many agents sitting on this call today have done demos of software just by yourself? You do the demo as the principal, or you do the demo as the operations leader, but you don't get your team involved early on. So we really cheerlead when we're doing demos with our agents to say, hey, who do you know are going to be the power users in your agency? How do we get them on the demo and excited about this product and learning where their struggles are? So get your people involved early, because they will not only feel like they're a part of that decision-making process, they're going to adopt much faster and much sooner when they're excited about the product and have seen it from the beginning. So people first is, I think, the most crucial part to this, but then process. I remember Casey Nelson, one time we were at an event, and he said, I had this agent write down what their process is today and what they want it to look like, and it is night and day. The process that we have right now is maybe 4 sentences, but the process we want to have in place is, what do we do next? What do we do next? So that way, when you hire somebody, you can hand them a process document that says, this is how we do things. This is what we hold accountable to. And if you can get everybody doing that same motion, it's going to be more fluid. And then persistence in that accountability. If you've bought this great tool and one of your producers sitting back resisting, find out why. Why are they resisting? What part of their process are they not willing to change? How can we help with that? So get in early with your people, get in really in the weeds on what your current process looks like and how you can change it. Even just create a Google Doc, start writing things down, highlighting the areas that take too long, or this is too many clicks, and really start digging into that. And then again, put some KPIs around adoption. For example, in SALT, where we see successes, the first couple submissions, the first couple form fills from prospects, get those going and see what makes sense to the agency level. Casey, I know you didn't know if you wanted to add anything here or not, but that's...
Well, I think the next few slides kind of break these P's down, but the only thing I would add here is that PPP, people, process, persistence. What would an insurance webinar be without an acronym, right? So just remember the PPP, that's kind of the foundation of what we're talking about today.
Yeah, and so I think change, I think I read a study the other day that a lot of people are like, oh, I love change. I think change is exciting. It means we're on the horizon, but most people actually resist change. We've seen it time and time again in not only this day and age, but people, when they see change coming up ahead, they find a way to dodge it a little bit. What's the path to least resistance for everybody, right? That's the general thought. So thinking through that, when you register messaging early on to your team, hey, we see this problem at the agency. Identify that problem with your team. Have them raise their hand. Who's feeling this problem? Casey and I did a demo this morning actually with a few agents and asked the question, what's the one word you would use for your data intake today? and it's painful, it's manual, it's cumbersome, these are not the words
Chaos,
we should be using in processes inside our
time
agency.
consuming.
Yes. And be aware that habit doesn't happen overnight, right? You don't have an agent come in and start using a paper quote sheet overnight. They build upon it over time and they get used to it. But it does take some time to get that habit reformed, right? Give your team a little bit of time to get back in that. Put some 30, 60, 90-day plans in place and start seeing where that progression happens. And it won't happen overnight. That's why I think with all the tools that you're investing in and putting your agency dollars in, ask again about those onboarding calls. Who's checking in with me? How much support do I get after the first 30 days? So that's a big one here. And then again, reinforcement. What do we say, Casey? It's like cheerlead in public, criticize in silence, or
praise
think
in
about
public.
that.
Yeah,
praise in public. If someone adopts the program, shout it from the rooftops. We have a real life story at the end of this webinar about one of our agents who said, I have one agent who I know is going to use this. So get that one agent using it and cheerlead them and talk about how fast it's making them move, how much more business they're able to do. And people are going to start following along. That FOMO is real. The fear of missing out is real. People don't want to miss out on what others are doing. So get that reinforcement and then make that a reality, right? And tell your team, hey, in the next 60 days, we want you to be using this tool 40% of the time, 50% of the time, 60% of the time. And then it becomes a non-negotiable. So make that really key at the agency level and you'll find your success there.
Hold for 1 second on this slide, because when I stare at this slide and I think about my own life and a challenge that I have right now, and that challenge is getting back to the gym. And I just cannot. For some reason, there's always something better to do, right? But if you think about that, I also bought a Peloton one time. I don't know if y'all know what that is, but that bike that collects a lot of dust after the first month. But it doesn't work unless you create a habit of using it every day. Or if you're trying to go to the gym, like it's awkward and you're tired at first, but then it just becomes a habit, right? And then you start to feel good. And then it has exponential effect on your health. And so I think, to me, this, what I would call a grind, this part of tech implementation is a grind. And so it's going to take that everyday persistence, and encouragement for your staff.
Absolutely.
All
right.
right.
Casey, did you want to jump in here?
Yes, I'll take the P's. People first. Adoption begins with people, not tools. I read when I was preparing for this, a good quote, I thought. Culture spreads behavior faster than a leadership mandate. Does that resonate with everybody? I know you'd like to say that your leadership style is perfect and your messages are always great and received and you don't have to repeat yourself, but that's just not true. What does work is when the peers are looking around, having that FOMO, seeing people succeed, that is what spreads in a viral like way. And so I think your people matter so much in this process. Identifying your champions, you know who they are, and you know who they you know who they're not. We call them ticks, technology implementation killers. We'll just keep that between you and me, but you know who your ticks are. Don't invite them to the initial meeting. Let's make this a blue sky meeting where your champions are there encouraging you as a leader and you encouraging them. That's where the real spread of great habits and behavior starts. Securing buy-in, I really do believe this. Jennie mentioned it earlier, like get your team involved early. Even if you've already made the decision, let them in on it. That it's their decision to make too. You're going to get a lot better adoption rate. Test drive, we love this. Get your people in there to experience it for themselves. I think that's another just way to love them and do well by them, to let them be a part of this decision process. Connect benefits, of course. What's in it for me with them? We all know that, but I think you just got to remember, implementing a technology, there's a reason you chose it. So explaining that reason to them over and over and over and over and helping them experience it, I think, is the key. So people first. Process. So we have agents that come to us and say, salt is the best thing that's ever happened to my agency. I've heard that. This morning on that demo, we had 28 agents on there. One of them happened to be a current subscriber and just wanted to lean into what was new going on in our product. And she said, "You're crazy if you don't use salt." So we get that side of things. And we also get the people that say, "It just didn't work for me. It just didn't work." And we're just scratching our heads because the product hadn't changed. It's the same product's working phenomenally with this agent and not with this one. It's because there's no process. So no technology is going to fix when you don't have a process or you have a broken process. And so that a lot is what creates a frustration when you adopt a technology, because you want it so badly to solve your problem and to be this magic potion. And we do too. We don't want to lose customers because it didn't work. It did work. The process wasn't there to grease the wheels or, get everybody in alignment. No technology, I'm going to repeat it myself, no technology will solve your problems if you don't have a process that you stick to, that you adjust when needed, but it needs to be trained, formal training. It needs to be layered. So when we were running the agency, we used to have Wednesday morning practice for our producers. We'd come in at 7 a.m. before the staff got there, and we would role play spin questions. I don't know if y'all have heard of that methodology, but it's a sales methodology, and we would practice on each other. And if you think about it, that's what athletes do. They train before they go onto the field or onto the court. I'm no sports expert, so I won't use too many sports analogies, but professional athletes train and are coached. Nobody is beyond being coached. And so your people need it. And they need role play. They need different types of learning. Earlier, Jennie said some of us are visual learners. Some of us are, I need to get in there and do it myself learners. And so I think that's important. You've got to build it into your workflows and you got to hold them accountable. The hardest part of being a leader, holding them accountable. And so that's just part of the grind of tech implementation and why we called it the ugly truth about tech implementation, because it is. It's a grind. And document. It's got to be able something you submit and say, this is how we do it.
Yeah. And I would say the term too is like tech debt. How many agents sitting in this room have too many tools? We're using 2 tools for this. We're using 1 tool for this. We're using 1 tool for this. And it's like, you start to get to this point where it's like, what are we paying for? And a lot of agents take a step back that we talk to and say, we're nixing all of our software other than our radar and our agency management system. And we're starting from the beginning. We're starting from the beginning. And that happens a lot. So it's almost monitoring what you're using in the agency as well.
I've heard agencies like, well, Sally over here does it this way. And, Benny over here does it that way. And I'm like, no. That's a, nightmare coming up soon. So, consistency and holding them accountable to workflows is key. I know you know all this. It's just good reminders that it doesn't just pertain to your workflows. It pertains to tech. And the final P is persistence. And I think this, again, I'll use the word grind or ugly. It's persistence. It's going to win every time. What do they say? Execution eats strategy for lunch, something like that. It's like, you just got to do it. You got to act it out. You got to model it. You got to repeat it, and you got to stick with it. And if it's important to you, when things are important to you, you'll be persistent about getting it done. So, I had a pastor one time give me the best illustration. It was like A, B, and C. A is the beginning of a project. C is the end of a project. B is the middle. What's the hardest part? And you're like, they're all pretty difficult. He said B. B is when you are stuck and you can't remember why you started it or where you're going, and you haven't felt the win yet. And so I think there's a lot of B in tech implementation. So just remember, there's, the wilderness is, you're going to get out of it. You're going to get the win you're after. But yeah, persistence, recognizing adopters. Jennie touched on this, like just praise publicly, like, oh, high five, We used to give spot bonuses where peer nominated little $25 gift cards for when they saw something, a behavior or something that we wanted to reward. Spot bonuses worked really well, just on the spot is why they were called that. Share your success. Obviously, that culture spread that I talked about earlier, share it. Stories work. It resonates with people. Tracking progress, yes. I'm the worst at forgetting where I started, So I think it's important when you're going through this to go remember where we were, and we're not done yet, but remember we've made progress. So I think that is very important. And coaching non-adopters, they're going to be there. Your ticks exist. We're in an independent insurance agent world. There's just going to be ticks. So technology implementation killer, it's a reminder. But you got to coach them. Everybody needs a coach, like I said. So people, process, persistence.
I wanted to touch on a story here really quick, as I touched on it a little bit in the beginning, but we have an agency who's been with us for some time now. They brought salt to the agency because what Casey mentioned, he had some staff members using a paper quote sheet. He had another staff member who created their own fillable PDF that they're sending to clients. They had another staff member create a jot form on their website, and they're like, what are we doing here? And they had a high E&O risk, as Casey mentioned, because everyone was doing something a little different. So the owner of the agency brought in who he considered what we call internally power users. So you're going to get a technology brought into the agency. As Casey mentioned, you know who your power users are going to be, the people who are excited for tech and want to start new programs and really like the change. Then you're going to have your implementation killers, the people who don't want to change. You're going to have to drag them across the finish line.
Might quit.
They might quit. It's real. Get your power users started first. With this agency, he got one user, and he has a lot of agents in a lot of locations. So even that was difficult. How do we get each location doing the same thing? And once that agent started using the tool, and other agents started seeing how fast he was moving and writing more business, and when he didn't have to even be in the office, having submissions come in when you're out on the golf course, other agents got that FOMO. So they started using the program. And now nothing gets quoted unless it's run through SALT first. Nothing. And now every single agent, if you could point to them and say, what's your quoting process? It's going to be the same answer as the next agent and the next agent and the next agent. And that is where it can be successful. And it takes time, right? As Casey mentioned, it's not going to happen overnight, but find the tools and the companies that are going to help you with your success, are going to ask, what are your goals for this program? What were the pain points you were trying to solve? How can we get there with you? There are tools out there that you'll buy, and they will throw you into the wolves after you buy it. You have no way to train on it. They don't offer any onboarding support, or you pay a huge onboarding fee and you don't get anything for it. So those are the questions that you should really start asking in the real world examples, especially as you're buying new technology in the agency. And then that was it. That was really, again, we're just going to circle back to the 3 Ps: people, process, persistence. Identify the people in the agency first. You could be sitting on this call with them right now. You could look over your shoulder and see a few of them right now that you know that you want to get on a program. So get those people identified. Get the process identified on a piece of paper. Write it down. Write down where the hiccups are. Don't wait for a demo to get on the call and them to tell you what your problems are. You should know those problems walking into a demo of a new software.
That's good.
And always, again, just continue. You're all salespeople. We're all salespeople here. You're persistent with your leads and getting them bound. We're persistent with getting implementation of tech. So think about it in both ways and how you're doing your day-to-day as well. Casey, anything else to add there?
No, I think we wrapped it up with a bow. Hopefully we have some questions though.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, thank you guys. I do have a question to start.
Please.
So hopefully we have a few more jump in, but people, process, persistence, I like that. I also like ticks. I've never heard that, so I'm gonna save that one. But
that one, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, even if you have the best people in the world, if there's no process, and I've worked with consulting with independent agents and their entire tech stack, not just, and we've had plenty that I've worked with who have SALT and who love it and who work it and use the integrations and use everything that it can do. But when you guys bring on somebody, whether their agency is already pretty tech forward or, like you said, is everything's on paper and they don't know where everything is that the first thing you guys talk them through in the onboarding is, hey, we need to see where everything's going from A to Z before you guys really start to help them the SALT form platform to their agency? Is that how? And I guess if you could kind of go into that a little bit deeper on what you might do for an agent.
Yeah, I think for us, just me being on the front line, it starts from the demo, from that initial conversation with an agent. It's what's your current process? If I called the agency today, or if I went to your website and filled out a quote form, what happens next? Who does it go to? Who handles that? Where does the handoff happen? And Scott, you know this as much as I do and anyone else does. Those conversations can be painful for an agent, because if they don't know, if I say, fill out a contact form on your website right now, where does it go? And they don't know, that's a red flag. That's an immediate red flag of, okay, we've got bigger fish to fry here, right? We can hand you the tool. Of course, we want you to buy it, but it's not going to do Salt any good or the agency any good if we don't identify that gap in process, even from the beginning. If we wait to get to onboarding and then identify that gap, it's going to take a lot more to onboard. So identify that before the demo, I think, is the big one. But yes, we go through those questions with our agents constantly, and Casey could probably back up that statement too.
Yeah, I was just thinking about our demo yesterday with an agency, a very large agency, and we just spent an hour talking about their problems. You know, and understanding their current process and where they want to go. And so they had been dreaming. They had been going, no, we know it can be better. We're just trying to find the pieces to do that. So I think, and I saw a question on, I think maybe we haven't been clear. We both work for Salt. Salt is a technology that solves a problem in the agency for data intake for personal lines. But we're not consultants. That is Catalyt's job. They will help you diagnose and build a tech stack that makes sense, but we solve the front end of personal lines insurance. So I just wanted to address that. Hopefully we weren't presenting ourselves as consultants, but rather just wanting to discuss this particular topic of how painful tech implementation can be. So,
and I think you touched base on both of the questions that jumped in. Jennie, you really did. Sue said, hey, do you recommend agents have written SOPs before considering any new tech implementation with Salt? And of course, I think that's what you touched on is, hey, know exactly, if you can, where everything's going, what's happening now before you get any new tech. Because if you have no idea where all these things are going, and like you said, you guys specialize with the Salt intake form. So, you're not going to say, hey, 3 steps ago, you should have done this, because that's not, whatever you're doing there is not working. But yeah, I would have a holistic SOP that shows everything you're doing. And unfortunately, like you mentioned earlier, a lot of people do different things within the agency, which then just muddies the water even more. But yeah, so the first question there, definitely you would want written SOPs. And then Sean was the one I think that Casey, you touched on, where you said, do you guys evaluate the overall agency? Which, no, that's not what you guys do specifically, but you also will help with things that you do integrate with. Obviously, you're going to touch point on what AMSs you guys integrate with, or CRMs that you guys integrate with. And again, like I've worked with multiple clients who have products that you guys do one click of that little switch and it's on, and it works every time. So Sean did ask, got it. Thank you guys. Now, can you give us an example of what the steps would be when you come into an agency? What does the process look like for Salt?
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to touch on a written SOP first too, because I think that's an important piece. That can be daunting for an agent to say, I have to sit down for a full day, a full 2 days, week to write out all my SOPs. That's never going to get done. I always say start small. Start with that. We're going to get into that whole process. Okay, if someone calls the agency, what happens next? Who does it go to? What form gets filled out? What rater are we using? Take those baby steps first and act like the prospect, act like the insured coming into your agency. I challenged an agency the other day. I said, go to your own website, fill out your contact form, and see how long it takes for
what does it feel like
to get back to you. What does it feel like? Is it painful?
Yeah.
Know those things. And I think that's going to be really important. And to your question of what does it look like? People want to self-serve today. In this day and age, people want to get things quickly. They want it to be user-friendly, and they want to do it on their own time, right? So make it consistent across the board. Make your website form the same as the digital form you're sending out to the insured, the same form that this producer is using agent-facing, the same form that a VA is taking in data. Make it consistent, and make the front door of your agency easy to open. I don't know how many times I've gone when I'm doing my own kind of researching on agents, how many times I've had to click in multiple places on a website just to find a quote sheet or just to find a contact form. Or I've called an agency and no one answers, or the phone tree is too confusing and I hang up. Make it easy for the insured. And I promise that process will feel more concise as you're getting along there.
I've heard this said, like, what's the difference between, a logo and a brand? A logo is a graphic image. Your brand is how your customers experience you and your agency. Just the same as culture is internal, how your employees experience you and your business and how and your leadership. And so that brand is that whole experience of what Jenny's talking about. That is your brand, not your logo.
Yep, exactly.
Right. We did, excuse me, guys. We just had one pop in a few minutes ago, and because I know you mentioned the personal lines, and I already know the answer, but so only personal lines, not a solution for commercial lines, correct? With Salt.
Not today. Yeah,
Okay.
not today. Just a personal line solution today. Yep.
Awesome. Okay, perfect.
But a slick personalized solution.
Yes. And I think you touched on this earlier, Jenny, and we have these questions all the time because we have relationships with a ton of solution providers, is the service. Once there is onboarding specifically for Salt, do they have a direct contact they're going to be able to reach out to? Is there a chat bot on the site? What is the method once if they're locking in, they want to join Salt, they get on board, moving forward, what does that look like, the service?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's a question I highly recommend asking when you're demoing new software.
Yes.
Again, the software can be beautiful and do all the things you need to do, but what's the onboarding timeline? How much is it going to cost me?
Yep.
How long is it going to take? Who needs to be involved? What's the service afterward? And so Scott, I'm so glad you touched on that. But with Salt, we do a pretty in-depth onboarding with all of our agents right off the bat. So as soon as they sign up for the product, they get instant access to the tool so they can play around in it. And then our onboarding team reaches out and does initially 2 trainings right off the bat, gets everything set up, fixes the integrations, makes sure they all are working, helps build the forms, gets the team involved. But we also do 30, 60, 90-day check-ins with every single one of our agents. How are things going? Is the team adopting it? Because what good is it even for Salt if we sign somebody up and 90 days later, they're still not using it? Sure, right. They're paying for their subscription, but that agent's going to turn around and say, we never got it implemented. We're going to cancel. And so really use that service. We do have service internally. So it's not robots. We're actual human beings. Our service team is full-time W-2 employees. And yes, they do get a specific person to reach out to after their onboarding at any time. And Casey and I stay pretty involved with our agents after the sale as well. We reach out to them to see how things are going. We see them at conferences. We offer swag. We do office hours with our entire customer base where they can pop on to a meeting in the middle of the week and ask questions. So that could be other questions as how are you communicating with your customer base after the sale too? Good question. Very good question.
And I don't know how much you want to get into it, but we did have and you just mentioned it, Jenny, the other question everybody wants to know. Sean asked for pricing with you guys. What does that look like?
Yeah,
is it a
absolutely.
per user basis, per agency? It all changes throughout. So if you guys wanted to touch base on that real quick.
Of course. Yeah. So Salt is a subscription model month to month, and we have 3 off-the-shelf packages available for any agency to sign up. They range from $199 a month to $499 a month, depending on, Scott, to your point, exactly users and number of submissions. And that's the only difference in our packages. I know some software out there, they have those visuals where it's like checkbox and this, or you go book a flight, it's like you get this for this amount of money and you get this much more for this amount of money. We only charge based on user count and submission count. Everything else in every other package comes in. And it is based on a monthly subscription cost. And pricing is very transparent on our website as well at saltinsure.com there at the bottom. So anybody can check that out as well.
Awesome. Awesome. I don't think we have any more questions at the moment. If you, Casey or Jenny, if you guys wanted to, of course, we appreciate your talk on, we had one more pop up. Can we book a meeting through the website with you guys?
Yes,
Absolutely.
just let us know you came from Catalyit. There's a little drop down on the Oh, we love
Oh,
the
no.
questions,
Yeah,
Sean.
keep
No,
them
no,
coming,
no
Sean. Yeah.
apologies. Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
No.
Thank you.
Yes, schedule a discovery call on the website and just let us know you're from Catalyit so we can get you the discount.
Thank you, Jennie, for dropping it. Jennie just dropped her email
Yep.
in and the website, and you can, of course, Google it if you want. But yeah, so yeah, Jennie and Casey, again, thank you guys. If you wanted to give, and I know this was specific to overall the PPPs, but if you wanted to wrap that up and then also why salt, just to, for our audience today, and then of course everybody's going to watch it later.
Yeah, absolutely. Casey, I'll let you start.
Yeah, I just hope that we all know that ticks exist in your agency, but I hope that we raise some awareness about how to work with them, not around them, with them, and bring them onto the team. So I think with putting people first, writing down your process, even if it's ugly, just know what it is so it can be improved. You got to start somewhere. And being persistent and walking through the grind, getting through the B of ABC in project management, I think you'll be golden. So your ticks will be ticks, but you'll get there.
Yep. And as far as why we have a line that we use that salt cuts quoting time in half, and we didn't make that up. That was actually an agent telling us that salt cut their quoting time in half. So if you want to really make your intake process consistent across your website, across your producers, across agent-facing forms, across consumer-facing forms, come see us. We not only help with that, but we do a lot from data enrichment. So you're not chasing down auditor information or vehicle VIN numbers. We also have a declaration page retrieval feature. So we can do a lot with our tool. So check us out. Yeah, book a meeting with one of our account executives. We'd be happy to show you the tool, show you our onboarding process, and talk about really all things intake.
And then
And Sean, yes, you can email me anytime.
I was part of the naming process for SALT back in 2018, but it never fails, especially at conferences, but just interacting with agents. What does SALT stand for? And like, because we need those acronyms, right? I'm like, it doesn't
Yes.
stand for anything, but it saves a lot of time.
There it
Get
is.
it?
Saves a lot of time.
There it is. Mic drop.
There we go. Again, Casey and Jennie, thank you guys both so much for being here and for this candid and practical discussion around the all independent insurance agencies tech stacks. This really highlights that successful technology implementation isn't about the tool itself. It's more about how you lead change, align your team, and build momentum around adoption. And for many agencies, that's the difference between wasted investment and real measurable results. And of course, thank you to everyone who joined us today. We know how busy your agency teams are, and we truly appreciate you spending part of your afternoon with us. And as a reminder, today's recording will be available, as always, within 24 hours inside Catalyt's on-demand video vault. So feel free to rewatch, share it with others on your team or anyone else that may be interested. And before you leave, please take a moment to complete our short 3-question survey. Your feedback helps us shape future Catalyt Live sessions, and you can also indicate if you'd like to be connected directly with the SALT team. If you'd like to follow up after today's session, we saw it in the chat bot there, or in the chat box, sorry. Jennie put her email. I also got it on the screen here, jennie@saltinsure.com. And if there's anything that Catalyt can do, please reach out to us. Do not hesitate. Come to our website, catalyt.com, or send an email to hello@catalyt.com. Then you can find SALT's profile page on our website and another way to reach them if of all the places we've already discussed. And yeah, again, thank you for the SALT team. We really, truly appreciate you guys. And we hope to see everyone else at another Catalyt Live session very soon. Thank you.
It was fun.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.